Hey guys, so I'm sorry that I'm not with you guys the day before STAAR basically, but I want to give you something to take home with you so that when you are home studying this weekend for the STAAR and you're going back over this mock exam, then you're able to see like how do I work these problems out? Like what did I do wrong? How did I do it? Why did I do it? Right? And so this is what this is for. And so as I'm going over this with you guys, please make sure, I am begging you that you are following along, that you're paying attention, that you are focused, because the STAAR is in one day, right? It's on Monday. And so this is the very last time, right, that we are going to be able to get this help. Okay? So number one, I literally did about 6 questions earlier and realized that I did not have my sound on, which is, normal life for Miss Johnson, but it's fine. We have it together now, so let's dig in. All right, so number one, we have a PEMDAS question, and so what we need to do is solve it by using PEMDAS, right? So I'm going to start with multiplication because remember in PEMDAS, multiplication and division go together, and it just depends on whichever operation comes first when I'm reading it from left to right. So in this case, since multiplication comes before that division, I'm going to do that first. So I'm going to have 2 times 7, which is 14, and then I'm going to rewrite everything else. So 65 minus 14 plus 9 divided by 3. And then I have division, which comes after that, which is 9 divided by 3, which is 3. So 65 minus 14 plus 3. And then we have 51 plus 3, which is equal to 54. All right, let's go ahead and look at number 2. So number 2, we had to figure out how many pounds the baby weighed at the end of 8 months. So if we know that the baby weighed 2.5 times its birth weight, and its birth weight was 7.25 pounds, I just need to multiply. But remember, I cannot multiply a fraction with a decimal, so I have to make sure that I turn that fraction into a decimal before I can multiply it. Okay, and then I also need to make sure that I line up my decimals, because if I do not line up my decimals, I'm going to get it wrong. Okay, so please make sure you do that. So when I multiply 7.25 and 2.50, I get 18.125 pounds. Now remember, I have to move the decimal place over 4 times because there are 4 numbers behind the decimal. So after I add it all together, I move it over 4 times, 4 places to the left. I'm going to wait till you guys get this copied down so I can go ahead and change the screen. Okay, number 3. So this is it's not very difficult, but the way that we have to do this is we have to set up a proportion. Okay, so number 3, the way that we set up a proportion is part over whole, and x is always out of 100 because the x stands for my percent, and that's what I'm trying to find. So I know what each part is, which is the number of students here, but I don't know the whole. So in order to find the whole, I need to add all these together, which gives me 220. So if I'm trying to find what the percentage is for each activity here, I have to have the part, which is 44, over the whole, which is 220, which is equal to x over 100 because percent's always out of 100. And then I have to cross multiply. So 220 times x is 220x. 44 times 100 is 4,400. And then I need to get my variable by itself by doing the inverse operation. So since I multiplied by 220, I need to divide by 220 on both sides. And so x is equal to 20%. Okay? So I need to go through my answer choices, and if you see here, A was 25% for reading, and we know that reading is 20%, right? B says reading is about 13%, and that's wrong, right? And C says reading is 20%, that's right. And D says reading is 15%, which is not correct, right? Because reading is 20%. I'm gonna go ahead and let you guys copy number 3 before I move on to number 4. Okay, moving on. So number 4, I have to set up a proportion again, and that's what you should have did. Or you could have also solved it with a ratio table. And so I know that my rate, right, is 5 gallons for every 3 days. So 5 over 3, because remember that's also a ratio. And I'm trying to see how many days it would take for 60 gallons. Now remember that whenever I set up my proportion, I have to set it up with the units of measure, right, in the correct order, right? So I can't put gallons down here when gallons was up here, right? I have to, if I have gallons at the top, then the gallons need to be at the top. If I have the days here at the bottom, then days need to be here as well, right? So all I need to do is cross multiply. So 5 times x is 5x. 3 times 60, right, is 180. And then I have to do the inverse operation. So divide by 5, and x is equal to 36. And like I said before, I can still, right, set up a ratio table like this. So I know that 5 to 3 is my ratio. And then I see the pattern here is going by 5s, the pattern here is going by 3s, and I can find the number of days that way as well. So as long as we know that the days are 36, then either way works perfectly fine with me. Just as long as we get the answer correct. All right, moving on. So number 5, we had to figure out which ordered pair did not appear in the coordinate grid. And so we needed to use T-bow for this because we had parts of our ordered pair as fractions. So when I do T-bow, I get my fraction as decimals, which is what I want. And if I look here, everything matched up except for B, because the way that we plot points on coordinate grids, right, is we crawl on our x-axis before we stand tall on our y-axis. So this -1 was here, right, and -1.5 is here, and there was no dot on that point. So that's why B is my answer choice. So what we have to make sure we do in these problems is we have to use T-bow to turn our fractions to decimals, and then we can solve the problem. Okay, number 6. So number 6, it wanted us to find which expression can also be used to calculate the number of pieces that can be cut from the board. So number 6, if we remember this from the past, right, whenever I divide by a fraction, I change my sign and I flip my divisor. So 5/6 divided by 5 over 16 is the same thing as 5/6 times 16 over 5. And so F is my answer for number 6. Okay, moving on to number 7. Okay, so number 7, the height of the rectangular prism is 12 centimeters. What is the volume of the rectangular prism? So remember, my volume formula is V equals length times width times height. Please make sure that you remember this formula. Please, 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 please. Okay? So I told you guys that the length was, I'm trying to remember because I do not have that written down. Let's see here. The length was 5, I believe, 5 centimeters, and the width was 4 centimeters. Right, so when I solve this problem, I have V is equal to 5 times 4 times 12, which is equal to 240 centimeters cubed. So all you have to do is say 5 times 4 is 20. 20 times 12 is 240. That's all you got to do.